Did you hear that coronavirus is gone in Texas, apparently?
It has flown the coop from Texas. It is
They're cured.
apparently it was too hot down there.
Couldn't take the heat, coronavirus.
Well, actually,
It's
really
funny
couldn't
'cause
take the
it's-
cold
Because it was freezing, yeah.
Yeah. Either that or just the 10-gallon hats just didn't suit its fashion sense.
Yeah, so Governor Abbott he called it off. He said, everyone, business as usual, starting next week.
100% capacity. I think that's
100%. Everything
100%.
back. And wearing the mask, that's your choice, man.
okay. If it wasn't like COVID era, this is post-COVID era, and we got that what essentially was a text. It felt like from the governor. What would be the first thing you'd do
The first thing I'd do if it was post-COVID.
if it was actually like
if his text message said, "Hey, did you hear that coronavirus doesn't exist in Texas?"
Yeah, like it's evaporated. It's gone. What would you do?
I'd probably just go to like a club. I'd go dancing, like a disco or something.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe a concert. I'd just go downtown and just try to find like a concert.
I would really want like a nice like pool party.
Well, what's funny is that people in Texas really can go do all of this. It's not post-COVID, and next week they could go and
They're
live
gonna
out
be
our
doing it,
fantasies
yeah.
if they want. I mean, obviously, most sensible people probably just won't. They'll just act as if the government is still asking them to follow.
Well, there's some
protocol.
businesses who are saying like, they're still going to require people to wear a mask if they come into their business.
Yeah, they have that right. But also, I think we know that the only reason they're doing this is because Texas needs the economy to bounce back, since the governor already fucked them over with the winter storm and allowed all this power to go out, which I'm sure hurt a lot of businesses that were already struggling. And now they need this stimulus of tourists.
I'm glad you said that. It's the worst type of diversion.
Mm-hmm. Also, just in time for spring break.
Spring breakers also will definitely jump on that, or the spring breakers who don't care.
Most spring breakers don't care.
I guess that's the nature of
They
being
always
a spring
go to
breaker.
Florida anyways.
Welcome to the Avon Inn. I am one of your hosts, Jerome Allen.
And I'm another host, Topher Wagner.
We are doom scrolling the news, so you don't have to.
Cue the theme music. Oh, that happened before.
It'll just how you.
It always happens before.
We gotta. I wish we
You know
had
what?
one
Every
of those,
time I
like,
hear the
right.
tagline, I'm like, this is when the
This
theme
is
song hits.
the theme music. Okay, so thanks everyone again for tuning in. So we got to get to my weekly segment of Stimulus Watch. And this week on Stimulus Watch, we have the moderate Democrats becoming the most powerful faction within Congress. Well, during our last episode, minimum wage was still on the table. Well, it's not anymore. The parliamentarian has taken it out, and it went back to the House. The House has passed the bill. It's back in the Senate.
That happened in the bird bath.
In the
bird
bird
bathing
thank you
process.
for remembering the bird bath.
I remember you
process.
saying that last week. This is called bird bathing.
I think it's bird bath, bird wash. Yes. Yeah. So during the bird bathing process of reviewing the bill, the parliamentarian said that the minimum wage could not be in a budget reconciliation bill. This is what happened. Yes. Of course, some progressives are calling to override the parliamentarian or get rid of the parliamentarian oust, because of course this is this question of like, if we want to pass a bill, we should be able to pass a bill. It's of that nature. Or do we get rid of the filibuster? But along with the now redacted minimum wage, also Biden and the moderate Democrats agreed to lower the threshold for those who can receive stimulus payments as well. So, what do you think about Joe Manchin being our new king?
I feel a little deceived, because when we won the Senate and the House and everything, it was kind of like, now we do what we want, and we can just sort of skirt all the red tape and bureaucracy of the Congress and just actually pass some legislation. But that's because we thought we were all sort of playing the same ball here.
Right.
And Joe Manchin is not playing. He's not playing any ball I know. He's playing Well, he is playing a ball I'm familiar with, but not one I expected him to play at the time like this.
He's wanting to be the Lisa Murkowski or the Susan Collins of the Democrats. I don't really know what I agree with you, like what he really wants. I think the one thing that's getting me is Democrats have like lowered the stimulus check payment, have, made certain concessions in the bill. So it can be labeled as a bipartisan bill, but no Republican is voting for the bill.
Joe Manchin is also trying to reduce the unemployment
from 400 to 300.
Right,
yeah, I saw that.
So I don't even think they're really like listening to economists on this. They're just like, they need their base to know that they care about government spending. And like, as long as their minds are on government spending and they're trying to save money, none of the rest of it matters. But it's like, this is not just a normal budget plan.
No.
This is a stimulus relief package.
The problem with the 2008-2009 recession stimulus has gone on record because it was too small and it didn't do enough. So it is quite strange that we are being tugged along by this one person who is just committing to a past mistake.
Well, I think that's the thing, is like, we would all be fine if it didn't always come down to one person. Like, like whenever Mitch McConnell was constantly blocking things in the Senate, it just felt crazy that why does this one guy have so much power to do all these things?
Right.
Whereas like, if it was like 15, 20 Democrats who were
Very
all
different.
like, we don't approve of this, I would be like, okay, well, I guess the party is just kind of split on this, and like, I do think maybe we need to find a compromise. But when it comes down to like one or two members who
You're
are
appeasing Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like the democracy is working the way that we wanted it to. Like, we worked so hard to win this election in the Senate, and now we're just back to gridlock. And I think Mitch McConnell has even had the power to block things as well, because Chuck Schumer tried to do like a unanimous vote to just do the $2,000 stimulus check, and McConnell was still able to block it using his newfound minority leader powers.
Really?
So, I mean, obviously, I don't understand how it works on a minutia level, but I thought it would be much easier than this. When the bill got to the Senate, I was like, okay, they're going to talk about it, they're going to have their debates, and then we're just going to get the reconciliation, and we're just going to pass it, and Kamala's going to, throw the final vote, and it's just done.
Right.
And now I'm coming to the realization that it's not that simple.
Well, the hope was that Kamala was just going to show up, and we were just going to have a mic drop every week.
I've been expecting her to mic drop throughout this administration, and we haven't gotten a mic drop.
No, we've gotten very little mic drops. I mean, there's been some like smaller wins here and there, the immigration plan being released, and there being some walking back on Trump policies, including like, I saw this, I don't know if you saw this in the AP, but like, Biden's been getting flack for like the fact that the detention centers at the border have been reopened.
Yeah.
I actually saw on an AP article that those centers are very different from the specific centers that we're talking about when, quote, kids were in cages. Like, these are actually, stocked places for teenagers and people below the age of 18 to wait, who had just crossed the border, like, without parents. It's interesting that we're seeing some things being changed or some things being either reverted back, but we're also seeing some caution. And it's like, I don't understand why is there caution? Like, the Republicans have the same playbook that they've had since 2008. Block everything, stick together, vote for none of their bills.
Yep.
So even the regard of like playing to them it's not going to work. I mean, the House just passed a landmark voting bill like today, and I highly doubt it's going to get far in the Senate.
Yeah, they really haven't changed their plan at all.
Mm-mm.
And yet we're still talking about this like unity between the parties and stuff. And it's like, I don't understand why only one side has to make the changes here.
Well, it seems like the one side like feels like, I think they're kind of stuck in a 1980s movie where it's just like, we are the world, we're going to come together, we're going to do the right thing. But like, corporate interests they're not about doing the right thing. They're about lining the pockets of those who are in power. That's about it.
Yep. And I think I can't remember who it was, but somebody during a speech at CPAC said one of the, when they say the quiet thing out loud, and they said something about how like making it easier for people to vote creates a disadvantage for the Republicans. And it's like, yeah, that's their whole MO is just that we have to do whatever we can to stay in power. And that's what you see in every decision they do is just about maintaining power.
Right.
And the Democrats want to maintain power too, but it seems like their approach is like, maybe if we just do the things that people want, they'll vote for us again. As opposed to just let's hold on to this small minority of the slightly smaller part of the country and just make sure that the side that's bigger than us can't actually vote. And as long as we hold on to this concrete wall of voters, we'll be fine. Whereas the Democrats, their voter base is only expanding, just
Only
not all those
expanding.
people are able to vote every time.
I know the Georgia House just recently passed a bill that was specifically limiting the amount of days that you could do mail-in voting. Every voter district would have to have the same number of days for voting, 3 weeks, including like certain weekends, and like it would have to be open during the same hours. So of course they're just shrinking the ability for people to vote in these elections, but hopefully, certain state legislators will just also fight back. But unfortunately, we also know that GOP legislators are buck wild, and they are not letting go of power anytime soon.
I do kind of want to circle back to what you were saying with Joe Biden getting flack about the immigration policies and stuff, because it's easy to forget that the Democrats don't have like a great track record with immigration either, right? Like I
No.
think we were even talking about how Obama was
He was
deporter in chief.
Deporter in chief. Yeah.
And so when I heard about the facilities and stuff, and it's easy for them to say, oh, well, these aren't different, or these are so much different from the other things. But it also kind of sounds like, well, we're still separating families, but we're giving them a bed this time.
Well,
instead
actually,
of a
no.
tin sheet
The
and
family
stuff.
separation policy
Okay, so that
is
one really
over.
has been just completely
They've reunited
struck.
families. Yeah, no, like any remnant of the Trump view on immigrants is completely gone.
Right, because Trump's entire immigration policy was basically just around
no one can enter
it
the
was
country.
just about like white grievances, right? It was
Mhm.
just about sort of stoking the flames of hatred. And
Biden's released the plan to make. He wants to diminish the amount of time, like to an actual strict. Because now you can apply to be a citizen. You might get your citizenship in 5 years. You might get it in 10 years. You might get it in 15 years. He's wanting to restrict it to 8 years. You'll get it in 8 years. The process is 8 years long. So, I mean, we might see that change within the presidency. We might not. I don't know.
I mean, I
Again,
think
it's all about gridlock at this
right,
point.
it's probably just one of those things because he can set out like a framework of where they want to work to, but at the
Right.
same time, for them to get that passed is going to be like one of those big bills, like
Right.
like healthcare or something, and it's just like government is so slow that you have to take these giant big ideas and just throw them on the back burner
Right.
and be like, we probably won't even get that to our first term, so then we have to worry about all this other stuff and then get reelected, and then we can finally deal with immigration.
I mean, to be clear, if he really wants to actually make a grand sweeping change about immigration, he would get rid of ICE. We don't need like ICE in any capacity, and we'd also reform the Department of Homeland Security not to be based around the hypervigilance around people of color in this country. So,
Right.
I mean, there are steps that can be taken. Which reminds me, did you see that Neera Tanden withdrew her nomination?
I did see that.
What did you think about how this all played out? We brought it up a few weeks ago, and now, there's someone else going in her stead. But unfortunately, it kind of came to fruition that she did not get past her tweets.
It feels very reminiscent of the Al Franken thing to me, where it's just like finally somebody is held accountable for tweeting inappropriate things in their position, and yet somehow it falls on a Democrat when it's like we just
Yeah.
dealt with 4 years of the most like divisive, toxic tweeting
Right.
ever, and now all of a sudden, now that we're back to normal, it's just like this is unacceptable. This is a deal breaker. And I mean, I thought it was like I guess like cool of her to step down and just sort of like not make a big fuss about it, because we talked about last week the USDA guy. You were saying, well, he got all this backlash. The thing he should have done is said, I'm going to step aside and let someone else nominate, or let him nominate someone else. And that's sort of what she did here. Was just like, all right, well, this is too much of a diversion or a distraction, and I'm just going to make this easier and step away.
Right.
And I never thought like she has to be in charge of the budget office. Like, oh my gosh, what will we do without Neera Tanden? It's unfortunate for her that she didn't get a nice promotion, but she's going to be fine.
Another segue. So tomorrow, Congress has been all sessions, the whole schedule has been canceled because of the threat of violence from far right wing groups. And I know you were bringing up about the FBI director testifying at the Capitol riot hearings.
Right. Yeah, Christopher Wray basically reiterating all the things that we've been reiterating over and over. And yet, I guess it means something to hear it coming from the adult in the room, who also, by the way, was nominated by President Trump. So I don't know why people are like sort of coming for him as if he's some part. I don't know. The conservatives are just so quick to call anyone like a deep state actor.
Well, yeah,
right?
and anyone that doesn't like appeal to their likings.
Right. And basically, he laid out plain and simply that white supremacist groups, domestic terrorists, far right groups are a huge threat to our national security, the biggest threat to our domestic security. And not only that, he pretty much debunked all those false flag conspiracy theories about Antifa and stuff, basically saying it's not that we're not looking into that. Like, we are looking for evidence of that. We're just not finding any. And this is a guy who, during the George Floyd protests, claimed that there were, he said that there were anarchist groups in Antifa who were taking advantage of the protest to sort of cause, violence or whatever. So it's not like he's taking sides here. If he was finding Antifa involved in the riots, they would be arresting those people, and they're not.
Yeah.
So it's very serious. What's the significance of tomorrow that they think, like, are they picked a day and they just are going to have
another I don't know
violent...
what March 4th specifically has anything to do. I didn't read too much into that, but I just know that they had to cancel for tomorrow. I mean, I'm not in the parlor chat, so I can't tell you.
Right. When obviously Christopher Wray isn't telling us any of that stuff. That's all like confidential,
right,
secret FBI stuff. But apparently they've already, I think 300 people have been charged so far with crimes, and 280 have been arrested.
Wow.
But they say they're not done even finding people to charge.
No, that was thousands of people that day.
Right. And they broke it down into like 3 different groups. There were the people who didn't intend for anything violent to happen and then didn't do anything violent. They just were there protesting, which, even though I don't like their ideology, like, that's fine. Like, you're allowed to go and protest at the Capitol. And then there were the people who didn't intend to do anything violent and then got swept up in the action. And they're going to still have to, they did crimes, even if they didn't intend to that day. And then there's the small group that we really need to worry about, who are the people who were planning it and came prepared.
Intentionally went
and
there
even though
to
that's
cause
the smallest
harm.
group, that is the most dangerous.
Yes.
And it only takes a handful. So I'm glad they called it off, but also it's just crazy that working this Congress, one of the cushiest jobs in the country, and yet you're fearing for your life day in and day out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem so privileged anymore.
Rather reminiscent of the early days, of the days of like presidential assassinations happening nearly on every president. So kind of re-enter into this moment of being a politician is a dangerous job because people feel, I don't know, this sense of entitlement to your well-being and to how like you get to like operate and navigate in this world. So like if you don't operate within their like justifiable means and they can take away your life, like it's kind of it's a hyper extension of like a dominion over someone's body.
Yeah.
Whereas like politicians are, I mean, they're of course putting intellect and thought and, power or whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, these are still human beings.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, there's some justification to feel anger towards the people in charge. I think everybody should at times feel angry about that.
Of course.
But one thing that I sort of took away from the hearings this past week is sort of this notion of like, how do we de-radicalize these people? And I think a good way of doing that is just showing them that they're not working for some greater good, right? Like these people are going to jail because they committed crimes that are morally and ethically wrong.
Right.
And I think for the country to come together and say white supremacy is terrible and that all these people deserve to be labeled as domestic terrorists, it might sort of wake some of these people up and realize like, oh, I'm not
Do
actually
I
on
want to
the
be
good.
associated with that title?
Yeah.
It's very similar to, and I know you've watched a good amount of this, but like when we watch like cult documentaries and it's about the psychologist who does the exit interviews or the exit counseling, and how exit counseling at this moment with a lot of people who believe in these conspiracy theories is quite hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to, I mean, because what do you like have to unravel? Paranoia. You have to unravel mistrust. You have to unravel, I mean, sort of the like also society level isms of racism, anti-Semitism and whatnot, sexism, and then just also detach the I think there's also the sense of like helplessness and powerlessness that goes along with all these beliefs. Like I can't, like, these things are so overwhelming that I have to do something to change it because you feel like you have no power.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot. It's a lot there.
And the one thing I learned from all those cult documentaries, they all have in common, is that it's dangerous to write off that type of behavior as just being a loon. And I'm sure I've done that with the QAnon people and just
Right.
called them all like racist, idiots or whatever. But
Right.
whenever I see an ex QAnon person who goes on CNN or something, I'm often shocked to find like, oh, this person actually does seem like they're a rational, kind person that
Right.
just fell into this belief system, and then all the other parts of that belief system just sort of fell in place because they're getting affirmation from this group thought. Right. So you go in because you're just upset at the government and you believe these conspiracy theories, and then all of a sudden you're reading white nationalist talking points as well.
But I also think that like at least within, for me, as a person of color, like I feel like it is, I do not want to involve myself in the emotional and mental lift of like having to convert white nationalists, because that honestly is not my job.
That ain't
To
not your
like
job.
like I just do not want to involve myself in that. So I mean, good for the folks who are doing it, but like I feel like the question also begs like whose responsibility is it to quote unquote like convert or unradicalize these people, because I'm gonna like I have I am fully aware of like a bubble that I exist in, but I'm also like I confirm that I'm okay with that. And I think there's also a difference of like, do you fall into something and you don't know? You're like, well, this is what everyone around me says, versus like, no, this is what I genuinely believe.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. What do you think about like creating like, I don't know, like programs for counseling these people through the de-radicalization process? Because it's got to be tough if everyone you know is still in that world. You're completely isolated the second you step out, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
And
it's just
obviously, like, I agree, it's not your job or any
right.
one person's job, particularly people who are especially triggered by the type of rhetoric that's coming out of that group.
Right.
But I don't know. I think like there's got to be some empathetic way to do it and still have those people be held accountable for anything.
No, I
they
think
did, because
there are counselors and therapists who work specifically with this, and I think that's good. I think these programs should exist, because I mean, it's utilitarian to say, but like this is another person who could contribute to society for sure, and can provide like a different way of thinking. I mean, I know I watch a good amount of TED Talks of people who have left the Mormon Church, who have left Scientology, who have, radically changed their thinking and now are like speaking about like the ability to change, which I think is just an important lesson overall. So I think it's good that it exists, but I also feel like it begs the question that a lot of folks have to like wrestle with, is just like, why even waste the time to deal with someone who has all the resources they have to change them? Because we all, like, not we all, but like for a lot of folks who are radicalized, it's because they have Facebook. You have access to the internet, you have access to these things, then you are consciously like choosing like your pathway and how you navigate the internet and how you navigate spaces. So it's also coming to believe that not all people want to be changed too.
that's true too. I don't think every radicalized individual really does want to be changed, but there's enough that are. I don't know. It's tricky, right? Because I think the ones that can be saved, the only way they're going to be saved is by somebody going above and beyond what they really should be doing. You know, like
Mm.
most people just look out for themselves, and you'd really have to. For me, I would have to sacrifice a lot to like befriend a white nationalist and like talk him through emotionally why he is so wrong in what he's doing. It's so much easier for me to just be like, I don't need to ever associate with you because you're trash. But the only way I'm ever going to convince them is if I like take that on.
But I think also something important to know, and we got to wrap up soon,
Yeah.
is that it's okay to do that too.
Yes.
Both of these options
Yes.
are okay options.
I would never
If
judge
you
him
need to
for
take
not
out the
doing it.
trash, basura fuera. But if you want to like actually engage, I mean, do the Lord's work as
Right.
well.
Well, and obviously these psychologists, they have the patience for that, and that they also have, they can make money doing it and whatnot.
Yeah.
So they have, you know, a reason to do it. But I think it takes a special type of person with a certain amount of empathy and patience with people.
Patience is the word. And then they can go from being an extremist QAnon person to being a moderate Republican,
Yep.
just like that.
Yeah. Well, I can't bring them all the way. Can't bring them all the way across the goal line.
Thank you for listening. My name is Jerome Allen.
I'm Topher Wagner. Thank you for listening to the Avant Inn. If you liked what you heard, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, check out all of our social medias: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the works. Credit for our music goes to Lakey Inspired with the song City of Angels. Do you have a inspiring quote?
Get vaccinated.
Get fucking vaccinated.
Get fucking vaccinated. It's
Click
time.
that refresh button.
Refresh 4 days in a row. Get the bots. Get the bots. Set up the appointment. Vaccinate. If you can. We know there's some eligibility. Anyway, we love you.
Love you. Goodbye.
Bye.